All right, we're going to do another practice test on Chapter 7, particularly for those that still had some problems. And again, we're looking for strategy. We're looking for motive, whatever. All right, so here we have a trinomial. It's in standard form. And we're looking to factor it. There are no common factors, so we suggest you put two sets of parentheses. Now, as we look at our first term and we are undoing the FOIL, what can we have here to get our first term? Well, 5 is prime, so it can only be 5t and a t. Now, 9 for our last term here could be a 9 and a 1. In fact, as I look at it, that's it. There'll be a 9 here and a 1 there. Now, it's all plus. So the signs are all plus. And when we FOIL, this gives us 5t squared. When we do our outers, that's a 45t. Our inners, a 1t. And then our last, a 9, and it checks out. So there's our first one. Now here we are asked to FOIL. So we'll do the same thing. Remember, you can pause anything to try it ahead of time. So our first will be a negative 7x squared. Our outers will be a negative 9x. Our inners, a negative 7x. And our last, a negative 9. So notice our middle terms now are like terms, so we have to group those together. So negative, let's put that in there. So a negative 7x squared, add these together, a negative 16x and a negative 9. Now, our next one is a quadratic equation. It's quadratic because it's to the second degree. And to solve quadratic equations, we have to put them in standard form. So 25x squared. I bring my 16 over to the other side, transpose it, get a negative 16. And equal it to 0. Now, this is in standard form, which is illustrated here. Now, they don't want this here. They want this to be factored. They want you to factor the left hand. So, what do you see here? Well, this is the difference of perfect squares, and will factor into its conjugates. Take a moment, again before I do, you can always pause, and put in the conjugates. So the square root of this is 5x, and the square root of 16 is 4, And we said one will be plus and one will be minus. And that's what they're looking for. Now, before we go on, they also want a solution for this. So as we solve these for a particular letter, we equal each of the factors to 0. So this factor equals 0, this factor equals 0. You transpose the 4, that makes it a negative 4. And then you're going to divide by 5. Here we're going to transpose the positive, or the negative 4 to make it a positive 4. And then divide by 5. So these will be our answers in the next frame. So you want to have this on your blue sheet. This is the work, and of course correctly put the answers into the software. Now for this one, this is an example of the power rule where we are raising something to a power, and we could simplify what's inside this a little bit because we can do some canceling. So we have a 2a. Now here I have b to the second, b to the third. I can subtract 2 from that 3 and get just a b left on the bottom. So taking 2 from the 3, I have b to the first. So now we're going to raise this to the fourth. So it becomes 2 to the fourth here. And there's a 1 here, so this becomes a to the fourth. And this will be multiplying b to the fourth. So this now, in a sense, goes away, and this is our answer. So 2 to the fourth is 16, a to the fourth over b to the fourth. Now here we are asked to add these, and we're suggesting that you put them in vertical columns. Now since it's all just addition, we don't have to change any signs. So the like term is negative 8x here, and this is a negative 7. So this gives us 2x squared. Now here this is going to be plus 1x, but we don't write the 1. And here this is going to be a negative 1. And take your time, check your work. That looks good. Now here we're asked to raise powers, and then also the value to the 0 power. So this is going to be a negative 3 raised to the 4th power. Now 4 is an even number, so raising a negative to an even power makes it positive. So this is going to end up as 3 to the 4th. Put that in your calculator, that's going to be 81. Now, since this is our base here, anything to the 0 power is 1. So this is 81. Now, if this were an addition problem, this negative 3 to the 0 power of 1, you would add, but here it's multiplication. Alright, here we're asked to put this in standard form first and then to factor it. Now you could do it a couple of ways. You can transpose this if you want and make that a 7x, positive 7x squared on this side, plus 2x, and that would still equal 0. I could put the 0 on this side, but I'm putting it here. So this is now in standard form. But they ask us to factor the left-hand side. So what can you take out of each of these terms? And it's just an x. And that's what they want here. So 7 times 7x plus 2 equals 0. Now they'll probably ask us to solve this as well. So we do so by equating each of the factors to 0. So now one of the answers here will be 0. And then when we take our positive 2, transpose it, it becomes a negative 2. And then we divide by the 7. Our other answer is this. Now let me just go through that in some detail because we're sort of using a shortcut here. So first thing, bring the 2 over. That'll become a negative 2 on this side. So we have now 7x equals negative 2. And now you're going to divide by 7. And there is our second answer. X equals 0. That's our first answer. So again, on the second part of this is a two-step problem. They want this. All right, let's go on. Now here, they're asking us to factor by grouping. And we have to take a few moments to study what's going on and see what we can group. Now here we see a D in this one and a D in this one. So I'm going to regroup these and go 36 dp. Then I'm going to take this other term that contains a d, negative 16 dx. So I've worked with these two. Now I want to rearrange these, but since this is a larger number and a smaller number, I'm going to put the plus 9pw there, and this negative 4wx there. So after studying, I've rearranged these, and I have a common D there, and a common W there. And then now what can I take out of these? Well, I can take a 4 out of a 36 and a 16, a 4D, and then this leaves me with 9p minus 4x. Now as I look here, I have a W is the only thing I can take out of here, but I'm left with a 9p minus 4x. Wow. So this one was a little bit of a challenge. We have reordered them taken out a common factor. So now we have this as a common factor in both, and then these I will put in another parenthesis. So 4D plus W, and then this common factor here, 9P minus 4X. And that's my answer. And once again, this is what you should be writing out on your blue sheet. And you check it. 4D plus W, 9P minus 4X. So that looks good. So every once in a while there are some easy ones. Now here we're squaring a negative 9. So negative 9 times negative 9 is a positive 81. And we don't put the plus. So one that was easy. Here we're asked to FOIL. And we'll do the lines here. First will be 9x squared. Outers, a negative 2x. Inners, a positive 18x. And last, a negative 4. Now we're going to group like terms in the middle and put our answer in. Now as we do these, I could have done this mentally, but if you're not sure of something, write it out. So there's 9x squared. Combining these, I get a positive 16x minus 4. Now, keep in mind, if you ever had to factor something like this, then it would look like that in the end. Foiling is easier. Factoring is a little more challenging. Let's go on. Now here they want us to factor this by taking out the greatest common factor. So we look for the numbers 3, 3, 7. There are no common factors other than 1. Now here we have an x to the third. So the greatest power of x we could take out of each one is just an x. Now we have here y to the second, y to the first, y to the first. So the greatest power of y that we can take out of each one is just y. And then what's left? Well, here we have a 3y for this one. Here we have just a plus 3. And here we have a 7x squared. Now, to check something like this, you look here in the parentheses and say, is there any more common factors? No. And then distribute to check that you would get this again. All right, let's put that in. And again, you want to check that what you have on your blue sheet is what you put in to the system. Let's go on. Now, here, if you can recognize it, that makes it a lot easier. This is a special product. This is a perfect square. This is a perfect square. So it will factor into its conjugates. Square root of this is y and a y. And this will be 2x and a 2x. And one is plus and one is minus. So if you recognize it, that's one of the things about practice and those special products. Okay, let's go on. So once again, this is a quadratic equation. They want us to put it in standard form first and then factor it. So I'm going to bring the negative 5x squared over to the other side as a positive. And then this is a positive 7x, and this equals 0. But in here, they want us to factor it. So the only common factor is x. In fact, let's put it up here. So I'm going to write the answer in there. And that's what they want in this step here. Now in the next slide, they're going to ask us to solve this. So we equate each of the factors to 0. So 1 will be 0. And then solving this, we're going to transpose the 7, where it becomes a negative 7, and divide by 5. And I did one like this. Hey, hey, hey! So, this is that, and let's continue. Now here, we're asked, is there a common factor for these? Well, the number, we have an 8, and 40 is 5 times 8, and 24 is 3 times 8. So we have an 8 for our number. Now, since the 24 doesn't have any letters, there are no letters here, and this is the answer. Now here they ask, is this a monomial, a binomial, or a trinomial? Well, this is a binomial. It's made up of 2 terms. Now, some other things we might run into on a question like this is, what is the degree of this? Well, you go to the variable and look at the exponent. And here the degree of this term is 6. And the degree of this term is 3. So what would be your leading coefficient? Well, the leading coefficient is the coefficient of the highest degree. So in this case, it happens to be also a 6. And the variable is x to the 6th. Okay, so they didn't ask that, but that's something they might ask. Oh, they're asking it here. Good. So what is the degree? Well, we said the degree of this was 6. And the leading coefficient is 6. Now, keep in mind, if these were switched around, these answers would still be the same. The leading coefficient depends on the highest degree, or the degree of the expression. All right, let's go on. Now, here, we've seen this a couple of times. There is your quadratic expression that they're factoring. So let's put two sets of parentheses. And they're giving you a hint here. So this would be Q and this would be Q for our first term. But they're already saying that one of these is 6. So it's going to be 6 times what is 24? 6 times 4 is 24. So these should be rather easy because they're giving you one of the binomials. Now, since your middle term is positive, what would be the sign of 4 here? Well, when you do your inners, you get a positive 6q, and you need a positive 2q, and this needs to be negative, so this would be a negative. Now, you FOIL this to see if you get back to this. And with these factors, you do. So here, we're asked then to put in Q minus 4. That's what they're looking for here. All right, let's go on. Now, we did one where we had to factor by grouping, but here they're asking us to factor this, and here our common factors are a binomial. So what some of you do is you multiply here. They're not asking you. They're asking you to factor. So you're going to put this common factor, 3x plus 7, and then bring in your other parts, 2x minus 7b. Now I would have written it with the 2x minus 7b up here in front. Either way is good. All right, let's put that into our system here. And check it to be sure it's what you want in the system. And again, having it on your blue sheet. Again, they're looking for factoring. Now, if you multiplied this, you would get a polynomial that you would then have to factor by grouping. You would put it in this form, and then to completely factor it, put it in this form. We're getting close to the end now. Here they're asking us to FOIL. And I went the wrong way. Let's do this. So our first will be a negative 12x squared. Our outers will be a positive 10x. Our inners, a negative 12x. And our last, a positive 10. So we group our like terms and then put this as a trinomial. And there it is. Now, for something like this, the strategy is put each of these terms in the numerator over your common denominator. Now here, all of this will cancel out in a sense, and you're just left with a 4 from this. Here, 2 of the x's will cancel out, so you're left with plus 6 over x squared minus, nothing cancels out here, so this is 5 over x to the 4th. And then putting that in here is 3 separate terms. Again, you want to be sure that what you have written is the same as what you want here. So that looks good. And we've come to the end. So we're going to submit. And we'll see how we've done. And on this one, I got 100%, so I'm very pleased. So hopefully this is helpful. You can always watch it again. You want to look at the technique, the strategy, the modus operandi, and we'll wind this up.